Welcome back to the Monster Hunter's Toolbox, the podcast where we dig into the things that don't just go bump in the night. They use your voice, copy your footsteps, and knock on your door, pretending to be you. Tonight, we're talking about mimics. Not the ones from fantasy games or movies. Not treasure chests with teeth. We're talking about the kind of mimic that shows up in real encounters. The ones that sound like your sister, that walk like your boyfriend, that scream like your child, but aren't. Dozens of reports from across Reddit, small town forums, and backwoods paranormal threads all describe the same chilling experience. You hear a loved one call out to you, but when you go to find them, you realize they were never there. Or worse, they're standing right next to you, asking, "Hey, did you just say something?" These aren't simple hallucinations. People describe these encounters with a terrifying clarity, often tied to wooded areas, old buildings, or moments of deep exhaustion. And tonight, we're going to look into every angle we can find. Real accounts, real fear, real warnings. So double check your locks. Don't answer unless you're sure it's really them. And whatever you do, don't follow the voice. So, what is a mimic exactly? Well, that depends on who you ask. In Dungeons & Dragons, a mimic is a monster disguised as an object, usually a treasure chest waiting to bite your hand off. But what we're talking about tonight is much darker. Across forums, Reddit threads, obscure encounter blogs, and even first-hand interviews, the term mimic has taken on a very different meaning, one that feels rooted in something older and more disturbing. A mimic, in this sense, is a paranormal entity that imitates human voices, movements, and behaviors, often to lure people closer, confuse them, or replace a presence that shouldn't be missing. These things don't just copy sound. People have reported seeing them. Figures that look like a friend or family member, standing just slightly wrong. Maybe the face is turned away too long. Maybe the eyes aren't blinking. Or maybe the mouth moves, but the voice just doesn't line up. Others report hearing a loved one calling from another room, only to find them sound asleep or not home at all. Sometimes it's one voice. Sometimes it's a chorus of them repeating the same phrase over and over. The scariest part, no one really agrees on what they are, but there are theories. The mimic could be a modern imitation of the doppelganger, a spiritual double or shadow self. In old German folklore, seeing your doppelganger was a warning, often that death was close. What we are seeing now might be a digital age evolution of that same ancient fear, being replaced by something wearing your skin. and having nobody even notice. Some Native American legends, like those involving skinwalkers, include entities that can take on the appearance or voice of others. But mimics aren't limited to the Southwest. They show up in stories from Appalachia, Canada, even deep urban neighborhoods. It's not about wolves or coyotes. It's about voices that don't belong, faces that flicker in the dark. Some speculate mimics are beings slipping between dimensions, copying what they don't understand. Like a recording played through bad speakers, a thing trying too hard to sound human. The repetition, the wrong cadence, the way they move like they've only watched people. Kind of like how we moo at the cattle as we drive by their pastures. Yeah, that's not just me, we've all done it. It gives off a not quite right feeling that many experiencers describe as immediate and primal. Others think they're a type of spiritual parasite, entities that feed on fear, confusion, and emotional vulnerability. They mimic familiar voices to lure people in or break them down, especially during trauma, isolation, or sleep deprivation.
Ow. Bella, are you there, honey? Open the door for mommy. Bella. Come out. Bella.
The Voice in the Field, Kansas, 2017. This story comes from a woman named Claire who posted on a local Kansas farming board. Not a paranormal subreddit, not a creepypasta site, just a community where folks talk about crops, weather, and once in a while, the unexplained. Claire and her husband live on 80 acres outside Salina. No neighbors close enough to see from their window. Just fields, trees, and an old silo out past the back fence. In early October of 2017, Claire was out feeding the chickens near dusk. Her husband, Matt, had driven into town for diesel. The sun was just dipping behind the tree line when she heard someone call her name.
Claire.
It was Matt's voice, same cadence, same light rasp he gets when he's tired. But it was coming from the cornfield. She turned, confused. He wasn't supposed to be home yet. The voice came again.
Claire, over here. Come look at this.
This time it was deeper, slower, like someone trying to impersonate him, but not quite getting it right. Claire says she felt something in her gut twist, a survival instinct. She didn't call back, didn't move. Instead, she backed slowly into the barn and locked the door. 10 minutes later, Matt pulled back up in his truck, completely unaware anything had happened. They searched the field. Nothing. No footprints and no animal tracks. Just broken corn stalks leading towards the woods and a scrap of their dog's rope toy Claire swore she had thrown away 2 weeks earlier, tied in a knot. She doesn't feed the chickens at dusk anymore. The Basement Door, Nova Scotia, 2013. This story comes from an anonymous commenter on a small Canadian paranormal messaging board. It only had 2 replies, and it was posted under the username North Shore Fog. In 2013, she was living with her grandparents in a farmhouse near Antigonish, Nova Scotia. One night, while her grandparents were asleep upstairs, she went down to the basement to grab a load of laundry. The washer and dryer were in the far corner, past a room that used to be a root cellar, the kind with stone walls and no windows. As she was transferring clothes into the dryer, she heard a loud bang, the sound of the basement door slamming shut at the top of the stairs. Then, her own voice called out, "Grammy?" She froze. The voice came again, only closer this time. "I dropped the basket. Can you come help me?" But she hadn't said anything, and she was still holding the basket. She backed towards the stairs, not daring to look behind her, and when she reached the door, it was open, wide open. Her grandmother was still in bed, sound asleep. The next morning, the laundry basket was back in the basement, empty, and sitting in front of that root cellar door. Yeah, there's something especially wrong about hearing your own voice in a place where no voice should echo. It's like the space itself is turning against you. Like it's not just haunted, but hijacked. Camp Echo Lake, New York, 2005. This one was buried in an old forum thread about unexplainable sounds in the woods. A man named Jerry shared it. He was 16 at the time, working as a junior counselor at a summer camp in the Adirondacks. One night, after lights out, Jerry and another counselor were doing rounds when they heard a kid crying in the trees. It was faint, but clear.
"Mr. Jerry, I'm lost."
The other counselor thought it was one of the younger boys from cabin 3, so they both headed into the tree line with flashlights. The crying kept going, but it never got closer. They searched for over 20 minutes, calling back, scanning the woods, even radioing the others. When they finally gave up and turned around, the crying stopped instantly. When they got back to the cabin, the boy they thought had been missing was tucked in bed, sound asleep. Neither of them ever forgot the sound of that voice calling their name, especially because the boy had a speech impediment in real life. And the voice in the woods, yeah, it didn't. A mimic doesn't just replicate sound, it edits. It picks and chooses the versions of someone it wants you to follow. And the worst part is, it knows what will make you go looking.
I explained this, but my daughter's at school, and I keep hearing something come. Did you hear that? Oh my God. Brooke, are you here? Brooklyn. There's literally no one here. Like,
38.
The Rental House, Oregon, 2020. This story came from a woman named Elise, who shared her experience in a thread on a now defunct paranormal blog. It never gained traction, just a single reply from someone saying, "You're not the only one." In early 2020, Elise and her fiancé moved into a rental house in Southern Oregon. It was a small, 2-bedroom place with a long hallway and a strange, low, crawl space entrance in the laundry room. For the first few weeks, things were fine, except for a weird echo in that hallway. She described it as unnatural, like voices carried farther than they should. Then, one evening, she was folding laundry when she heard her fiancé call her name from the bedroom.
Elise, come here. I need your help.
She called back, "1 sec," then walked down the hall. The bedroom was empty. A few seconds later, the front door opened, and her fiancé walked in, holding takeout. He had just gotten back. That night, while brushing her teeth, Elise heard her bedroom voice again, her fiancé's voice, whispering her name. But he was still in the living room. The whisper came from inside the laundry room. When they checked, the crawlspace door was open, just a crack. The landlord later told them no one had lived there longer than 6 months in over a decade. There's something especially disturbing about a place that learns your rhythms, your names, your voices. Not haunted by memory, but by imitation. Like something studying you from the walls, waiting to be convincing enough to call you closer. When you look at these stories side by side, separated by geography, time, and background, a few patterns begin to take shape. And while no two encounters are exactly the same, the similarities are too consistent to ignore. The voice always comes from another room or location, whether it's a cornfield, a basement, a wooded trail, or just another end of the house. Mimics rarely appear face to face. They call out from a distance. It's always just far enough away that you can't verify it immediately. And that distance, that hesitation, that's when they seem to thrive. Like they want you to come looking. Familiarity is the bait. The voice is always someone known, a partner, a sibling, a child, maybe even yourself. And it's never random small talk. It's, help me, come here, where are you? All phrases designed to trigger action. Some theorists suggest this shows intention, strategy, even hunger, because it's not trying to trick you with complex dialogue. It's using the shortest possible path between fear and instinct. Rural or isolated locations. Most stories don't take place in busy cities or crowded apartments. They happen in farmhouses, cabins, wooded camps, or old rentals with few neighbors and too many shadows. Whether that's about geography, ley lines, or just silence amplifying the strange, we don't know. But it happens where people are alone, and especially where there's no one else around to verify what they're hearing. Middle of the night encounters. This isn't universal, but many stories mention the early hours, between 2 and 4 a.m., the so-called devil's hour, or the thinning time, depending on your beliefs. A time when sleep paralysis, shadow figures, and spirit activity are historically at their peak. Coincidence? Maybe. But if you hear a loved one calling your name at 3:17 a.m., think twice before answering. Memory gaps and object displacement. Several encounters include bizarre moments of object movement. A laundry basket that ends up in the wrong place. A toy that reappears weeks after being thrown out. These aren't just ghostly pranks. They seem to serve a purpose, like a distraction or a breadcrumb trail. Something meant to lure you toward the thing pretending to be someone else. Mimics don't confront, they entice. They don't scream, they call. And once they get your attention, it's already too late. So, how do you protect yourself if you ever hear a voice you know but can't quite trust? Here are some key takeaways from the stories, experts, and survivors themselves. Never rush toward the voice. That instinct to run to a loved one's call is primal, but these stories show it can be dangerous. Pause, listen, think. If something feels off, don't follow. Verify before responding. Check other signs. Are doors locked? Is your pet reacting? Is your loved one physically present? Don't answer unless you're absolutely sure. Light up your environment. Darkness seems to empower mimics. Keep lights on. Carrying a flashlight in isolated spaces can help you stay grounded and alert. Stay connected. Isolation feeds fear and vulnerability. Stay in contact with others. If you feel something is wrong, reach out, even if it's just a text to a friend. Trust your instincts. Your gut feeling is often your best defense. If something about a voice or presence makes your skin crawl, it probably should.
You've been there for so long. Gabe, come out. You should come out.
Then what's your name then?
The voices that echo through the dark, the shadows that move just beyond your sight, they remind us that sometimes the greatest dangers are not out in the wild, but waiting inside the walls we call home. Mimics don't just copy, they steal. They steal voices, faces, moments of trust. And if you're not careful, they might just steal you. So the next time you hear your name whispered from an empty room, remember, sometimes the thing that sounds the most familiar is the thing you should fear the most. And if you've had an experience with a mimic or something that shouldn't have been, share your story in the comments below. And if you found tonight's episode chilling, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss a journey into the unknown. Thank you for joining me on this path into the shadows. Until next time, stay alert, stay safe, and don't trust the voices in the dark.